What do we have to say? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year out there in Cyberland as well. This is the moment we've all been expecting. This is the moment that all of our lives have been leading up to, this very moment. All past moments are drowned in the waters of time. All future moments, nothing but fantasy. This is our moment, our time, our sacred now. So let us light the candle. Let us light up our faces, light up the reluctant lanterns of our hearts in this enduring winter. For now, at this cutting edge of time, we're together. Anything that can go wrong with fire in church will. This is the day of days. Let's enter into it fully. And because we are now under a rule that says we can't sing, and we're wearing masks, you may sing if you want. You can do it privately, sing with your mask on. But I've asked Will if he would play hymn 22 in the purple book. Come, strong God, and walk beside me. I rarely go on Facebook, but I did at Christmas time and found something that my good friend Bill Darlison, former minister at Dublin, had posted by one of my favorite poets, Annie Dillard. And I'm going to read this. It's about how you have to walk out of here expecting something wonderful to happen, about miracles that might just happen, or perhaps that do happen and we don't notice them. When her doctor took her bandages off and led her into the garden, the girl, who was no longer blind, saw the tree with the lights in it. It was for this tree I searched through the peach orchards of summer, in forests of fall, and down winter and spring for years. Then one day, I was walking, thinking of nothing at all, and I saw the tree with lights in it. I saw the backyard cedar where the mourning doves roost, charged and transfigured, each cell buzzing with flame. I stood on the grass with lights in it, grass that was wholly fire, utterly focused, and yet utterly dreamed. It was less like seeing than like being, for the first time seen, knocked breathless by a powerful glance. The flood of fire abated, but I'm still spending the power. Gradually, the lights went out in the cedar, the colors died, the cells unflamed and disappeared, but I was still ringing. I had my whole life been a bell and never knew it until at that moment I was lifted and struck. I have since only very rarely seen the tree with lights in it. The vision comes and goes, mostly goes, but I live for it, for the moment when the mountains open and a new light roars in space through the crack and the mountains slam. Thank you, Annie. And I'll bet we could hear something about the soul now from Lowell.
Lift up mine eyes, so I may see glimpses of truth thou hast for me. Open mine eyes, illumine me, O Spirit divine. Light of my life, I am sighing, I'm not dying, I am dancing. Dancing along in this madness, there's no sadness, only the song of the soul. And let's sing this song. Why don't we sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. Sing this song. Come on, let's sing along. And we can sing for a long, long time. Now what do you do for a living? Are you forgiving, giving shelter? Follow your heart, love will find you, truth will unbind you. Sing out the song of the soul, sing this song. Why don't we sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. Sing this song. Come on, let's sing along. And we can sing for a long, long time. Now come to your life like a warrior. Nothing will bore you, don't worry, be happy. Let in the light, it will heal you, and will you feel you sing out the song of the soul. Sing this song. Why don't we sing along? And we can sing for a long, long time. Sing this song. Come on, let's sing along. And we can sing for a long, long time.
Thank you, Brother Lowell.
Thank you.
All kinds of ways to talk about the soul, and there are all kinds of ways to think about it. Let's take a few minutes now ourselves and be peaceful. As we have now gathered our bodies, let us now gather our hearts and minds in a moment which we make sacred by our intention. In this moment, we may become aware of the unexpected depth of our living. We may let our carefully constructed defenses slip, suspend our disbelief, and silence the cynical voice that holds us captive. Around and about us are miracles. Some have become so familiar that we cannot notice them anymore. Miracles of the cycles of our bodies that endure and change in so many varied scenes. Of our consciousness that makes us eyewitnesses of creation and its storytellers. Of the deep well of our unknowing, which touches the very seat of God. For these and the million other miracles of that which we call life, we spare a moment's reverence. Of the many hours of our lives, this is the one that might unite us with our true selves. Here we may allow ourselves to sense the invisible and to touch the hidden. Who knows what further miracles of transformation may await us? What else can we do now but this? To be quiet, to wait, to long for the coming of wisdom, and to go gently where we have so often gone, softly and gladly, together into the good silence. One God of our deepest hearts, keeper of dreams, giver of hope, maker of worlds, healer of harm, friend and lover and self of selves, be with us. So be it. Inshallah, shalom. Amen. Any chords? Thanks, Will. It's hard to sort out a service if we can't sing, if we can't break it up in what they call a hymn sandwich. Hymn sandwich is like a club sandwich with layers, but the bread is always the hymns. Well, raise your hand when something I say strikes you as peculiar. And I'll tell you what I mean. We're in a different place now. It's all over. The smoke has cleared literally from the fireworks of Christmas and New Year's Eve. 2021 has ceased being a minefield of confusion and become history. The snakes and ladders path through a year of dire illness and rumors of cures, the growing certainty that the climate has been damaged beyond repair, even as we once again queue up for guilty trips abroad. The Greek letter Omicron has become known to everyone we see, a symbolic reservoir of collective dread. And as we brush the remains of 2021 from our shoes and try to move forward, here's a question. Is there anything else we still need to do? Yep, of course there is. We need to pause right here and take an inventory. Perhaps you say inventory. I was corrected on this point years ago. I don't like inventory. It sounds like a place where people set up to invent things, when it's in fact the opposite. So I shall say inventory, and please just interpolate. Whatever you call it, I've never much liked them. My very first job as a dog's body in an American five and dime store, I went through my first inventory ever. It seemed a little bit pointless to me as we took down all the boxes from all the shelves in the storeroom and counted all the loose items and wrote that down. Mr. Peterson, who was my boss, was always in a bad mood at that point because he discovered that he had less stock in there than he thought he had. I stayed out of his way. I didn't even reach into the open cardboard box of sweets that I always did to grab a handful when I passed through there. He was doing what I later realized all of us must someday do. Stop doing business as usual and count the gains and losses of our life's project. Well, we could do that today. We could share together in this inventory business. We could start here looking around the church. We could look around at all of the empty seats that we now have that we didn't used to have. The loss of friends to death and other things, the strange new way that we're now conducting our morning services, aiming at the camera. The stretching of our community via the internet to people we don't even know, and occasionally we hear from. Well, my stock taking stretches way beyond that, though. It's my imagination, maybe, but is there something about the dying of the year that piques our own sense of mortality? Without feeling particularly morbid lately, I've been thinking about my will. Been looking through old address books to find the addresses of friends I've almost forgotten about. Turned the pages of photo albums. And in my dreams, it's been a particularly active dream period for me. Characters have appeared that I haven't seen in many years. Some of them, because I've lived in so many places, are probably lost to me now. And any reasonable thought of making contact would be impossible. But then I asked myself another question. Why are these people, these ones I'm dreaming about, why are they with me now? Like the ghosts of Dickens' Christmas Story, Marley and Tiny Tim and Bob Cratchit. Why, for example, Antoinette Mosala, the crippled girl in Botswana that lived her first 7 years with dogs? Why John Lamobian, the Christian Maasai with TB? Or Badrilal Runwal, the tailor of Ahmednagar in India who laughed all the time, even in disaster and tragedy? And yet Jeanette, my first love. And a guy whose name I can only remember is Ed, who went to Vietnam and came back changed, wounded inside and out, wearing a pair of elephant skin boots. Well, I got to mention mine. If we took the time, you could all mention yours as well. People that are lost, half forgotten. I feel better for having mentioned them because now I've actually given them a sort of reality here in this room. You may even want to know something about them later. You may want to know why Antoinette lived with dogs. But then I answer my own question. Like Fritz Perls and the Gestaltists said, the elements of a dream are parts of oneself. They are parts of you. And I'm aware that that's indeed what I'm engaged in. I'm collecting the diverse and scattered elements of myself, lifting the dusty boxes from the shelves. I'm taking inventory. Some of it is awake, some of it's in my sleep. Well, most of mystical writing ultimately seems to indicate that we took birth, not accidentally, but on purpose, immersing ourselves in a soul's task that was to be fulfilled by the rough, ordinary experiences of life. This is the view of the world that can variously be seen as a school by the optimists and obstacle course for the less hopeful. Sometimes this hidden life's task is seen as something specific, like making great music or finding a new drug to cure humanity. But I think that things are much more down to earth and basic than that, and that the real learning happens in the simplest and yet somehow more complex lessons of daily life. And you hear about it from Yeats and Whitman and Keats, all those poets, all of whom seem to say that the great project in which we're all engaged is one of their term, soul making. Soul making. Well, if we are indeed making or refining or fulfilling our souls, what could be a better time to do it than now? Our mundane projects have been suspended for this little while. All the imagery of Christmas is past. All its disappointments and pleasures has softened the hard edges of our calculating minds. We're in a kind of a demilitarized zone of the year. The inventory becomes probable, even inevitable, because like Scrooge, our pasts and futures will seek us out in our dreams, if nowhere else. The task is to make sense of this barrage of experience and let it do its work upon us without our customary filters of denial and distraction. So in this inventory, what must we account for? It's been said that the last hours of one's life, deathbed scenes, there are just two causes for regret. Regret for things you've done and wish you had not done, and things you never did that you wish you had. And somewhere in between these two chasms of remorse is where we all live, neither hot nor cold. This is the profit and loss column of our spiritual inventory. It may include such apparently humdrum elements as wishing you hadn't studied dentistry when all you really wanted to do was play the accordion, or bemoaning the fact that you never learned to ski, like me. I never learned to ski. However minor these things might seem, they're worth a second look because, like all the mundane face of life, they contain elements of what they're talking about, of soul work, promptings of vocation. Say such modern philosophers like James Hillman, they contain the seeds of life's meaning. Whatever you are prompted to do, whatever you feel strongly drawn to do, is a message to yourself about the work you need to do. And the mourning over lost opportunities and missed turnings, that's not trivial, that's painful. Well, being at the end of one's life is a bit like this season of the year, I think. We watch a portion of our lives vanish into history. Now, too, we're conscious of the gains and losses, the noble intentions and craven avoidances of life's year now gone by. And like people who are near their ends, our reflections are likely to turn not on career and vocation, but on the relationships that have been the currency of our soul's project all along. I think it was Alfred North Whitehead who said, I'll have to paraphrase here, in the growth of the soul, relationships are everything. So if one has cause for regret, it most often centers around failure to love, to understand, to forgive, and to actually know other people. Maybe it's because relating to others is the primary task of the soul that we feel most remorse and hurt in the context of people. Friends and relatives, lovers, enemies. Each of us will have regrets in this area. Come on, each of us have regrets. However well they're obscured by anger and denial. Each of us has been hero and villain, sometimes both at once. What the soul seems to demand is an honest, undefended appraisal of our relationships, an admission of shortcomings, and an act of setting things right. This means forgiving when we've been hurt, an honest acceptance of the times when we have caused harm. This is not easy work. As Meher Baba once said, it is no game for the faint-hearted. Wow, this sort of inventory, like all inventories, is ultimately crucial, and it's ultimately a hard thing to go through. Some schools of mystical thought hold that this is what happens right after you die. Have you heard that? Lots of mystical systems have it that when you die, all the good things you did come flooding in, all the bad things you did, and you writhe about the bad things and you rejoice about the good things, and it's another heaven and hell. And people say one preview of that is that thing people say when they're in an accident, a near-death experience, and they say, my whole life flashed before my eyes. It's like you've begun the review even though you didn't need to. And sometimes things that bother us can be corrected. Wrongs can sometimes be made right in a way that brings a flood of blessing to everybody around us, like Scrooge on Christmas morning. It takes courage and the endurance of vulnerability to undertake such a thing. Think about it, though, just for a moment, in your own life. Isn't there a letter you could write, an email? Isn't there a call you could make? Or if time and circumstances made that impossible, can't the soul profit from just admitting to oneself or someone else, that thing for which we feel unresolved pain and conflict, that was done. From my work and reports of my colleagues, I know of many deathbed stories of great soulful healing in even a few minutes near the end. So being at the end of one's actual bodily life is not an obstacle to this. The soul is both generous and obstinate in its purposes. So in this new season of beginnings, we may feel prompted to pull out the old drawers of memory in symbol and physical fact. We may feel strong enough to rake over old experiences and past turnings, however uncomfortable we might find it. We can afford it. We can afford it. It is the end of our year, and these things are crucial. They're essential. The very life of the soul is what's at stake. It may well be that we can help one another in this season's inventory. Learning as I have about you this last year, I wouldn't be at all surprised. So, what remains to be said as we step across the threshold into this uncharted territory of 2022, this time of risk and vulnerability? I know, despite all the work that remains to be done, all the bits of unfinished business that will not be quiet until they've been addressed, despite the sad and wonderful fact of being human, here it is. I'll say it for everybody. I hope you find the tree with lights in it. I hope you find the tree with lights in it this very afternoon. And in the meantime, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Well, Fiona, our ace camera person, has to hop right up and down all through the service.
No, not a lot in between.
Yeah, but I thank you for that. We're hoping that hymns come back in soon. Right. I should mention that Fiona's choir sang in the competition. What's the name of the organization again?
Crystal Palace Community Choir. We didn't win though.
No, you didn't win, but you were great. And some of the choirs I didn't think were very good at all, actually. But I thought yours was. And anyway, congratulations for taking part. I got a nice letter back from the organizing committee, hoping I would do it again and perhaps buy more tickets. But it was worthwhile. And let's see. Well, we are now into like a wave of Omicron, and everybody is beginning to act out of panic. Our guidelines from the government include masking up in church and suggestion for not singing or singing with masks on. But so far they haven't changed the law, nor have they changed the law for bars, nightclubs, and so on. So we'll just go on groping our way through the year. I'm hoping we can find some more of our people who don't worry too much about having a mask on to come and join us. But am grateful to you all for coming. And Will, I'm grateful to you for doing this at short notice as well. Shall we close? And I think number 226 in the Green Book. And now with clearer sight, with stronger hearts, and with more willing hands, let's go cheerfully out the door into this new season of life. May we hear what we have been ignoring. May we speak the truth as we know it and walk in the knowledge that we are never lost. And for this, may we look after one another because we know we can until we meet again. Amen.